Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Captain America issue 697, and I really like this issue. Even though I'd seen some previews of some of the stuff that was going to happen in this, I really enjoyed the angle of having Cap being put up against Kraven, who's usually a Spider-Man kind of villain, and it was a kind of different dynamic. I really enjoyed it. So this issue starts out, we see Steve at a bar playing pool with this girl, and he does all these kind of amazing shots and wins and everything, and of course she asks his name, and he provides it, and then he asks her hers, and she says babe, as we see that she's got this ring with this blade on it, and that she'd scratched him. And of course we see a closer up of the fur around her collar, similar to that of Kraven's. Of course Steve then passes out, and then wakes up in Kraven's lair. But he's dressed as Captain America, and he has a shot collar on. Because he tries to go up and take on Kraven, but of course it stops him from getting too close to him. And of course Kraven's like, I of course would have made preparations for this kind of thing. And of course Cap puts together, remembering Spider-Man mentioning Kraven and all that, and Kraven goes into his kind of spiel, how he is in the pursuit of game and all that, and that man is like the perfect game, and that he will want the perfect man, Captain America, since he's like perfect physicality and all that because of the super soldier serum. So of course, he says, this is what I want you to do. You're going to try and make it through the jungle. If you reach the coast, you get your shield and your freedom. And of course, Cap points out the flaw in the logic of, well, you want prey. Prey have to fear what's chasing them. I don't fear you. And of course, Kraven's like, well, if only all men felt that way. And of course, we see that Kraven has another dude down there yelling for help. And of course, Cap inquires who that person is, and Kraven's like, doesn't matter. And the thing is, that's an important kind of distinction because it doesn't matter to either man. It doesn't matter to Kraven because he doesn't see any value in the person, but it doesn't matter to Steve because he helps anybody regardless, as we see him jump out the window to go and help him. So, of course, this dude's like wandering around and we see a leopard getting ready to go after him. Then we get this awesome scene where Cap just body slams into the leopard, and of course he gets scratched by it, but is like suplexes it onto this booby trap. And I'm just going, I'd seen and heard about that, but just seeing it in action was just, it's really very well done how the action is gone through and drawn, and how little is said, because you're like, oh my god, Captain America just saved this dude from a leopard by treating it like any other kind of obstacle, whereas anybody else would be like, holy crap, how do I help this guy get away from this leopard? Cap just puts it into play, and it's just another thing to fight. And of course he's going into and kind of like explaining what's going on to the guy. He's going, well, I know that there are going to be booby traps. If you stepped on that, you would have been done for. So he took out the booby trap and the leopard in one fell swoop. So they get to talking, and we find out that this is David Cotter. He's this Virginia Tech dude who is around Europe, and then he woke up here. He's like, I know you're Captain America, but where am I? He's like, well, we're the person who's known how to get around the jungle since probably before your grandfather was born. And then starts giving him lessons, like lesson number 1, reduce the chances of blood sport, because like a wolfhound can smell that from 7 miles away. Then of course we see the tree get hit by a shot. We see Kraven kind of toying with his prey, with his gun and all that. So of course they start going through, he starts giving him more instructions to like follow his directions and everything. They're going through this one place, and him having to like go through and use his belt to whack these snakes, going, you know what? Those were more for you than for me. And he's going into how creative Kraven is to set up these traps and kind of what his goals are. So they're trying to figure out how to get up this one kind of rocky incline, but of course David pulls on this vine and sets off this avalanche. And of course Cap tries to go and grab his shield, but he doesn't have it. So of course he uses his body to shield David from the rocks, and David is profusely apologizing, saying that if there's any, trying to figure out if there's anything wrong with Cap. He's saying, I'm just dehydrated, getting there, and just trying to go through it. So of course they get to another obstacle with all these kinds of vines, and we can see Kraven looking at them, and Steve kind of has the idea that he's there, so they kind of are keeping to go through that, making a line, because David says, why don't we just swing through the trees on vines? And he goes, Tarzan's fiction. Just do what I say and all that. And to pretty much make sure that he stays about like 2 steps behind him, but to walk in his footsteps because of any of the traps going on. So of course they get through, and Cap sets off one boulder trap that almost hits one of them, but they're both luckily all right. And of course they get towards the coast, and they're like, well, we're close to freedom. But of course Steve's like, hold on, it's never that easy. Takes a rock and throws it, and we find out that it's landmine. So of course Steve goes, all right, just follow this path, and we should be all right. But of course David goes, I think I heard a click, and he's on a landmine. So of course Steve's trying to make him remain calm and all that as he's trying to dig and defuse the mine. But as that's going on, we see that David pulls out a gun and is pointing at Cap's head, even though it makes it seem like he's not paying attention. But of course, Cap grabs the gun and says he smelled gun oil, and we find out that Cap has been anticipating this kind of thing since he figured out how kind of creative Kraven is, knowing that the real trap was David. And he wondering when he would make his move ever since what had went on with the avalanche of rocks. Going, all right, there you go. It's really kind of cool seeing how Kraven's trying to craft these traps for Cap, and how Cap is trying to figure out what angle the traps are going to take next, and finding the ultimate trap with David. So of course, Kraven's like, bravo, bravo, and he's like, well played, no one else would be alive right now, and it's just great that it's gotten to this point. So, of course, he's like, I don't suppose you'll honor our terms. And yeah, you'll get your shield back once you get the freedom of unconsciousness. And, of course, he shoots at Cap, and Cap falls over the cliff. And then it starts getting interesting, because at first we're just thinking that Kraven is just doing this as his own kind of thing, his usual kind of Kraven thing of his game pursuit. But as Cap starts to fall off, he goes, oh, crap, you clumsy fool. The contract called for you to be delivered alive. So somebody has put out this hit, specifically with Kraven. Nobody else up until this point has been used kind of to go after Cap. But now we know that somebody's going after him. So he tries to go after Cap. Cap grabs him off, and we see that the shield gets off of Kraven's back. Cap gets it back, and they're kind of hanging on each other. Kraven by the Cap's foot, and Cap by the cliff. And of course, the collar is still in effect. And he's trying to get Kraven to turn it off, because otherwise they're both going to fall. And of course, Kraven goes, never. The shock incapacitates Steve long enough for him to let go, and they both kind of fall into the water. Now this is the point that we just kind of lose sight of Kraven, and we see Cap being like, what's going on? We see this submarine pop up with people from Rampart that we had seen in the beginning of this arc. And of course, the plan didn't work. But they go, well, we'll just have to improvise. And at first they get onto this ray and all that, and they shoot it at Cap, and we find out it's a freeze ray, and he goes, no, not that. And we see the Cap has been frozen again. And, of course, I'd heard about this going into it. It's just, the way it came about was very intriguing and kind of different than what I thought was going to happen. And with this whole thing of the arc being about like Cap going across America trying to figure out how people feel about it, I thought it would be a little bit longer till we got into this kind of point. But this can still retain that still core of how people feel about Captain America, taking him into the future and seeing how Hydra Cap could potentially change the legacy of Cap, and figuring out how Cap's going to get back to the present. Get back to the present and deal with what's going on. So that was a big change and kind of shock for me, and I'm going, okay, that could lead to some interesting stuff. Now, that's where the main comic ended. We still got something even cooler at the complete end, because they are putting things in dealing with the whole Logan situation. We see the bar where Cap was taken from, and of course we see this, hey bub, you see my friend, as Logan is inquiring about Steve. And he's like, well, I can't say I've seen anybody like that in today. And he goes, well, no surprise. Rogers is always getting waylaid. I'm just going to have to meet up with him some other time. And, of course, we have seen that Logan's got an Infinity Stone. That really puts in more emphasis on him saying, we'll have to meet up some other time. Meaning that Logan could potentially be the one of the people in the future that helps him come back or whatnot. It was just a really cool way to insert Logan's story into what's going on with Cap at the moment and what's going on. And this just sets up some cool parts that I'm really looking forward to seeing how they implement what's going to be happening since Steven has now been frozen and what's going to be going on with that. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.